Auburn has one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, but is there a battle brewing between Horatio Fields and Perry Thompson? Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the WR Report. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for turning us up and turning us on a Monday morning. We're talking wide receiver this Monday morning to get the week started. Hope you guys had a happy 4th of July. But if you've watched the show, you've heard us talk about Perry Thompson and where we think he'll land. Before, I think he is still the second best wide receiver in this room by talent and raw potential. But he's got some guys ahead of him. Obviously, Eric Singleton comes in and joins the group running a 4.2 straight out of Georgia Tech. But sources are telling me that there's a battle brewing between Horatio Fields and Perry Thompson this offseason. Hugh Freeze really likes both guys. As a matter of fact, in a recent interview, he talked about re-recruiting his wide receiver room and going out and recruiting new wide receivers, saying, look, I really like this room. I don't know if I've got the room to go out and get the guys that I want out of high school while also convincing my current room that I really like to stay. That includes convincing guys to wait their turn, and that's where Perry Thompson is at this year. Is it his turn, or will he be jumped again by another guy out of the portal? I think it's his turn. I think it's his turn. I think if you're Hugh Freeze, you said from the beginning that you feel like the best way to build this thing is from high school. So if you're not going to lean into your high school guys, that philosophy isn't worth anything, which is why I think he stays true to himself and he finds ways to get Perry Thompson the ball. Look, Auburn has to win football games flat out in 2025. With the state of recruiting right now, there's a lot of talk about whether Hugh Freeze is playing too much golf. You can silence all that talk with productive play, with wins on the football field, and by making stars out of guys who did not enter the season on that star list. I think Cam Coleman is going to be a star. We can all agree. He's going to be a guy. But you're going to need more than Cam Coleman. You need somebody else to step up. Last year, you had Keandre Lambert-Smith, who was clearly the leader in this room. In my one-on-one sit-down with Hugh Freeze, he called Horatio the Keandre Lambert-Smith of this wide receiver room. Now, that's high praise. That's high praise for Horatio Fields. That means he sees him as a leader. He sees him as a glue guy. That means he sees him as somebody who's doing all the things they need to do to step on the field and start on Saturdays. But Perry Thompson, I think, is being slept on. I think he's being slept on because he didn't pick the system up as quickly as everybody else. I think that he's still working on some things that they want him to do well. And quite frankly, Perry Thompson is just more talented. I hate to say it. I hate to put it that way, but he is the more talented guy. I think he's got the higher upside. Now, when you're comparing these two receivers, man, look, Horatio, 39 catches for 463 yards last year at Wake Forest. The year before, 2023, only 5 catches. It's not a mountain of experience that he has over Perry Thompson. If you're Perry Thompson, you just have to make plays when you get your chance to hit the field. And I think you overtake Horatio this season, if not by the start of the season. There are a lot of people I've talked to who don't feel like Perry has a chance to start. Now, I'm not ready to write Perry off. I think that if he takes what he did in the spring and on A-Day and he carries that into fall camp, it's going to be really hard to keep him off the field. But speaking of Perry Thompson, what did he do in his freshman season? 5 catches for 126 yards and a touchdown. I know it's only 5 catches, but he averaged 25.2 yards per catch. Not a bad start for Perry Thompson. When he was able to get on the field, we saw him make plays. And I think that that's where Auburn has to continue to build with him. You build with your guys from high school. Perry Thompson is that guy. So does Perry Thompson clear? I think he clears. And quite honestly, I think he clears easily on talent alone. But it's going to come down to whether he knows what he needs to be doing. Last year, when you heard Hugh Freeze talk about guys like Malcolm Simmons, he said, Malcolm is an obvious talent, but sometimes he's running around at 200 miles per hour just doing the wrong thing. If you're Perry Thompson, you can't afford that this year. I think, quite honestly, the only thing that holds Perry Thompson back is Perry Thompson. So, with his 5 catches for 125 yards last year, we got to see a little bit of what he could be. But this year, I think if he gets a chance to get on the field and they keep him on the field, he's easily a 500 to 600 yard receiver for Auburn that shows up in big time moments, making big plays for Jackson Arnold. We saw Deuce Knight seem to have a lot of chemistry with him during the spring. I wonder if Jackson Arnold has that same chemistry with Perry Thompson. I've heard he's doing well with Cam Coleman. I've heard he's doing really well with Malcolm Simmons. And I hear he's meshing with the Georgia Tech transfer Eric Singleton Jr. Very well, but not a lot in terms of how him and Perry are actually coming together. So hoping to get more of that as we approach media days. Now, who's number 2? Who's going to be number 2? That's what we're here to talk about today. I think it's got to be Perry Thompson if you're Hugh Freeze. I think that if you don't get your guy, if Cam Coleman doesn't shine, if Perry Thompson isn't the guy, the passing game falls apart. I think it falls apart. I don't think there's any narrative that anyone could spin up for me where these guys aren't starring and Auburn is successful next season. This is the time for your stars to shine. You went out and you made a big deal about going and getting these receivers, and now you got to use them. That's it. Auburn is not so loaded with talent that you can afford for top 30 guys to fall by the wayside, especially not with the way recruiting's going right now. You need Perry Thompson to shine this year, and you need them to anchor you next year. You got maybe one more year after this left with Perry and Cam. Those guys should be leaving Auburn with records in the passing game. No doubt. So, when you read some of the things that have been written about Perry Thompson so far this year, he admitted that it was a humbling rookie season for him. And when you come in and you're used to being the guy and suddenly you're not the guy and you're having trouble maybe picking things up, it can be a humbling experience. All reports are he took that humility and turned it into motivation. But that has to turn into playing time at some point, or it's all going to be for naught. He's got raw power. He's got contested catch ability. He is a true deep threat on the football field. I think he has a lot of the things that Cam Coleman has. Both these guys have the ability to make just ridiculous catches. So when you talk about where this wide receiver room is ranked, ESPN says Auburn has the 3rd best wide receiver room in the conference behind Ole Miss and Alabama. And quite frankly, I don't think Alabama's wide receiver room is better than Auburn's. I think their quarterback room has been better than Auburn. So a lot of people are sleeping on the wide receiver talent. I don't know that Ole Miss has better wide receivers than Auburn. I think their quarterback room has been better than Auburn. So their receivers have had an easier time catching the ball. That's it, guys. That's all we're talking about here. We're talking about better quarterback play leading to more opportunities for wide receivers that are making Alabama and Ole Miss's receivers look better than what Auburn has. I thought Cam Coleman outplayed Ryan Williams in the Iron Bowl this year. I don't think it was particularly close. But, they had a guy who came into the season as a dark horse for the Heisman and Jalen Milroe. Of course, they were supposed to do better than what Auburn had. Wild to think about. But, again, the 3rd best wide receiver room in the country in the conference, being voted that in the preseason, is miles from where Auburn was last year. Absolute miles from where Auburn was last year. So you got to love what they're doing there. Perry Thompson is a big part of that, I think, right? So, when you look at those guys, when they line up and they dial up those single coverage go balls, Perry's going to make plays. He's going to make plays for you. I can't wait to see it. Hopefully Hugh Freeze finds a way to make sure that he continues to make plays. Look, we're going to talk more about this wide receiver room right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of the Auburn Express is brought to you by our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. That's right across the street from the Chattahoochee Valley Community College, next to Renfro's Supermarket and Marco's Pizza. The Vibe Vault. If you're in the Columbus, Phoenix City area and you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, get fresh for the weekend with the Vibe Vault. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. This episode of the War Report is brought to you by our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Our guy Richard is a longtime sponsor of the show. Please go show them some love by visiting them for all your herbal medicinal needs. Also, I want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Golden's Cast Iron workout, grill out and chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Guys, let's jump back in here. Horatio Fields. A lot of people were up in arms earlier when Auburn signed Horatio, and I said, hey, what a great depth piece, right? Meaning he adds depth, meaning he's a talented guy that adds depth to your room. And, you know, some fans on social media freaked out and said, oh, you know, keep calling the guy a depth piece before he gets here. That's not a bad thing. You have to be good to add depth. You have to be good to add depth. I think Horatio Fields adds that to this room. Hugh Freeze has been effusive in his praise for Horatio Fields since he's arrived on the Plains. I think that's a good thing. You've got to be able to have a plan B and a plan C in the SEC if you expect to win football games and win regularly. So that's what Horatio Fields gives you. But I got to come back to Perry Thompson. There's no way Horatio Fields should walk in and be able to beat out a top 30 overall player coming out of high school and Perry Thompson in his second year in a system. The only person who beats Perry Thompson at this point is Perry Thompson. He's got to fight for this job like his life is on the line this year. And for all intents and purposes, what I'm hearing, he's doing that. So if he can continue to build on what he started this spring, and don't get me wrong, man, he's been working hard before this. He's been working hard before this spring. But this has to be the year that it comes together for you if you're Perry Thompson. I want to see him play. I don't want to see him leave the Plains and not make a significant impact. Takes me back to, Auburn recruiting guys like Nate Craig Myers, and then they transfer out of here and don't do much. You can't afford that if you're Hugh Freeze, I think. I think you can't afford to feed the negative recruiting messages that are out there right now about Auburn that are effective. And they're effective because there's truth to it. Auburn has been a struggling offense for 2 years. Auburn has failed to win games. Hugh Freeze could be on the hot seat after this year if all things don't go well. After 2 straight losing seasons and a lot of resources put in to the program. Now, later in the week, we're going to talk about those resources and whether they're actually being withheld because of things that we can't talk about right now, but we'll talk about later in the week. You got to win football games. You got to use Perry Thompson to do it. He's there. If you're Hugh Freeze, you can't let a guy like this get out of your wide receiver room without playing him significant time. Make him a starter. Do what it takes to make him a starter. We talked about this with Cam Coleman last year. He was clearly going to be a starter. But they said, we didn't want to force the ball to him. I don't want to hear that. Cam Coleman is a transcendent talent who you just get the damn football. Perry Thompson is a guy who you just get the damn football. Come on, Hugh. We're out of excuses here. You just got to get this done here. Now, what was a successful season look like for Perry Thompson? As I mentioned last year, Horatio Fields at Wake Forest had 39 catches for 463 yards and 4 touchdowns. He averaged 11.9 yards per catch. If you're Perry Thompson, you got to do better than that. And this is the SEC, so let's be real. It's going to be harder. It's going to be harder to do here than it was at Wake Forest. Flat out. But I think a successful season for Perry Thompson would be something in that 45 catch range and about 600 yards receiving, and something close to double-digit touchdowns. Perry Thompson has the ability to be an absolute red zone threat, a red zone monster for you. Throw the ball up to him, watch him go get it. That's what you have on either side of the field in Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson. Throw the ball up and just watch him go get it. At some point, Auburn fans, you don't need excuses. You don't need, oh, well, they threw this, that. You just need them to go play football and do it at a high level and do it better than the guys that they're playing. That's it. It's the story of Auburn football. Perry Thompson is a guy that helps you do that. And if he doesn't get there, if a top 30 overall guy doesn't get there, whose fault is it? If you're Auburn, you haven't had the best track record. If you want guys that are ready-made, I get that. But everybody else is developing. Perry Thompson doesn't start. Auburn has a development issue. That's it. I'm not putting it on Perry. If he leaves Auburn, he'll be missed. I believe he'll find success wherever he goes, too, because whoever gets him is just going to see a ball player, and you're not going to hear a bunch of excuses about why they didn't get him the ball or why he didn't get on the field. Send him out there to make plays. At some point, it's throwing and catching. He does that for you. In the red zone, you need him to run good routes. You need him to understand concepts. But sometimes you just need him to go up and catch the football. So at the very least, Auburn should be using him situationally to make things happen in the red zone. And you were poor. You've been poor there for 2 years. Red zone offense has been absolutely putrid. There's absolutely no reason to not use Perry Thompson. I think he's the second best receiver on this team. I get Eric Singleton Jr. I think he's supremely talented. Can't wait to see his speed in action. But if we're talking about pure talent and total upside, Perry Thompson is second only to Cam Coleman on this squad. Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. If you're in the comments after the video, do us a favor and smash that super thanks button. We appreciate everybody for supporting us. As always, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.